I am Stephanie Finn. I'm Executive Director of Winter Film Awards International Film Festival. So thank you everyone for coming out tonight, for producing 101. Just some basic housekeeping. If you have questions, there is a button down at the bottom of your screen to ask a question. So just type up your question. We will keep an eye out for it, and we'll ask it to the group once it is a good time to do that. We have another session tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. about how to create a festival strategy and a PR strategy for your film. Very important. Everybody needs this. So I definitely recommend that. Check out our website and social media for that. And Winter Film Awards International Film Festival is back for 2021. We are going to be winter in September. We will have our first year ever not loading the theater in the snow. The film festival will run September 23rd to October 2nd. So again, check out winterfilmawards.com for more about that. And I am handing over to Joe. Joe Masiri has been on the festival team since the very beginning and is not only our horror guy, though that is his favorite thing. He also has been involved all along with strategy for the festival and put together this session for us. So Joe, take it away. It's all you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And there's Chris.
There we
Yay.
go.
Hey, how's it go? Excellent.
Yes, good to join you guys.
So why don't we just jump right in? We've got 5 great panelists tonight, and I'm sure those who are attending will gain a lot of insight if they don't already have it. So the way I'm looking at this, Ian is in my upper left-hand corner. So Ian, if you would please introduce yourself and, just expand upon the whole universe of Ian Holt, producer.
I'm Ian Holt, coming from you live from the Overlook Hotel, hanging out in room 227. I'm a producer, I'm a writer, I'm an actor. I studied at NYU under Stella Adler and under J. Boyce Harmon Jr., who did, all those action movies back in the 80s that we all love on late nights on Cinemax or Skinemax. And then I started producing horror with Dr. Chopper and episode 50. And coming up is The Last Call and Cursed with Mickey Rourke and Lindsay Lohan.
Excellent. Thank you. Heather, you're in the middle of everything right now, so please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, my name is Heather Buckley. I'm a film producer. I do docs and horror movies out of Jersey City, but I feel that I work in New Jersey, New York, and LA, and I have a studio called Black Mansion Films, and we're always looking to platform new auteur voices of all backgrounds, all genders, all classes to tell unique, singular stories.
Excellent. And James, welcome. And James and I are newfound friends. He just did a film called Bad Witch, is how we met each other. And James was doing it all. So I figured to bring him into this producing panel. So James, please tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and what it is you do.
Yeah, so my name is James Hinnigan, and I just had a film called Bad Witch come out to like Amazon, Vudu, just different streaming services, and I wrote it, I produced it, I did some acting in it, some props, stuff like that. I did a couple of other indie films before that, but I think Bad Witch is probably the thing I'm happiest with so far, and I just like to write a lot, write different scary stories.
Cool. And Eric, I don't think we've ever met before tonight.
Oh, hi.
So please enlighten myself and the audience as to what you do.
Yeah, my name is Eric 13. I did some time as a production coordinator at Apple, executive producer on a couple feature films, recently Antrim, Rob Zombie's 31, director. with a film called Disposition. And I do music videos and a lot of other odds and ends independent projects here in New York.
Cool. And last, certainly not least, longtime acquaintance and friend, recently returned from travels back to the East Coast, Mr.
Yes.
Chris White.
Yes, Chris White, producer, writer. I've been doing producing since MTV, where we did the My Super Cycle franchise, which was really popular for the network. From there, worked on oversaw production on VHS 3, which is AKA VHS Viral. Worked on ABC's of Death, The D for Dogfight, was producer on that. And recently have a film called Doors. It's a sci-fi anthology that I did with Brad Miska, who runs Bloody Disgusting. And that was really cool. And then there's another version called Portals with the Blair Witch guys and Timo, who did Headshot and Made the Double Take You and all this other stuff. Currently have a project with Lee Daniels. And then we have created a new type of series that we're going out to market with Sky Studios. And that's pretty much it. So, write, also write, and, all that good stuff.
You're a busy man.
Yeah, trying.
So why don't we just jump right in? I know I had sent you guys the agenda, and the first thing that I had pointed out is that, everybody that's invited here works in the independent film community. So, you produce, but a lot of times you're wearing other hats. And the reason why I decided to take on this panel for the festival was because when I recently spoke with James, he was the first writer, director, actor, producer that I'd ever met that said he liked doing the paperwork. and so, the question is then, what is it about producing, giving all the other disciplines that go into the filmmaking business, why you decided that, that's where you want to focus most of your time? And Chris, being you went last, why don't we start first with you?
Yeah, well, I'm more of the creative type. I've always surrounded myself with a team of great people who love to do the paperwork side. I love putting, the elements together of finding the content, then developing it, getting the money, bringing the money in, and, pretty much overseeing and being part of that whole creative process. That's where, because I'm a creative guy at heart. So that's really where my interest is. When it comes to paperwork and everything else, that's, again, I have, team members that do that very well. And they're great. The one thing is that, with the producing side, what I do love, which is always probably one of the most interesting, is really getting to work with new filmmakers. You're always working with, on the producing side, you're able to work with all these different personalities and all these amazing filmmakers. And then also just being part of that whole creative process from pre-production to production to post and everything after, once you get a distribution deal and get that set up, and then the process after that. So, I find all that exciting. But when it comes, again, when the paperwork, that's not really my thing.
Heather, what about you?
I became a producer. I was a fine artist. I then went to design school. I worked in New York City advertising for 13 years as a creative lead. During that time period, I wrote for Dread Central and Fangoria. And someone at the Fantasia Market asked me what my day job is. And I said, I'm a creative lead for a very well-known advertising firm. And they said, so everyone in the business and you do multi-million-dollar cross-disciplinary management, perhaps you should be a producer. And that's how I went on to supplements, produced The Ranger for Glass Eye Pix. I got into South by Southwest, doing David Gregory's Al Adamson doc, which played all over like Beyond Fest and Seaches. So I just said, sure. I was invited in to do it. I love to do it. I love to platform new voices. I like to advocate and evangelize things. But the kind of producer I am, I like to find IP and do fundraising. And if anyone needs any like miracle hires or collaboration for their movie, like if you need a wolf, if you need a famous New York City jazz musician, through my Rolodex, I can find those people, but I'm not necessarily the on-the-ground producer. I can do it, but usually I'll just create funding and miracles for people.
Excellent. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I have such a long history of making my own projects that it sort of seems like I have a really hard time partitioning out different roles of a producer because I grew up doing all of them. And, you know, to me, like films in the DIY space and really learning to make stuff on your own. I mean, you were the producer and the camera operator and the lighting technician and the grip. So I have a really hard time differentiating those jobs anyways. And I think the more kind of arrows in your quiver you can have, you know, it's helpful to me to know how to write a budget and to be the editor. And both of those disciplines, you know, work hand in hand. When I'm out raising money, I also know where I can save money as a line producer, as a UPM. I wouldn't say I enjoy the paperwork necessarily, but really like that's just part of the day-to-day work, I think, of it. And the real benefit is knowing, you know, what items you can kind of cross off your budgets, where you could save money with unions or with various grants. All of the things you're doing paperwork for, I look at those as potential savings and extra projects that can actually get made, and you know, different ways to find a way for something to get done.
Excellent. So, Mr. Holt, what motivated you to be a producer?
Well, I started out wanting to be an actor, and I made my first movie back when I was like 5 years old. I was in 1976 King Kong, and I met Jessica Lange and decided, when she told me who Brando, when his teacher was Stella Adler, I decided that's where I wanted to go, and I went to NYU. And while at Stella, you know, she broke down the script and the characters. And then as an actor, I felt I knew more going through Stella and learning from Stella than most of the people that I was working with. And it wasn't arrogance, just that Stella had almost 100, she was 88 when I worked with her. She had 100 years almost of experience that she put on us. And I said, well, maybe I should be a writer. And I started writing, and I got encouraged to write. And I optioned my first script I ever wrote. And then, you know, when I got my first movie made, Dr. Chopper, you know, the director was the writer-director of Ghoulies, until Reservoir Dogs, the most popular independent film of all time. It grossed something like $65 million back in the 80s, and he got $10,000 of it. That was it. And I was getting, you know, like 150 grand for the script that I wrote, and this producer that I worked for made 150 films, and this is the first one to ever make it to cable. And it became such a big underground hit that when our lead died, they didn't say, oh, this actor died. You know, they said, Dr. Chopper dies. I mean, that's how big this came, and she made millions, and I made 150,000. And I got pissed. So I decided that I'm going to go, through Mike Sargent, a friend of ours, I was on the set of his movie Personals, and I struck up a friendship with a producer, Boyce Harmon. And I said, maybe I missed my boat. I should have gone to film school for producing. And he said, you know what? Why don't you come work for me? I was working at UMTV Raps, by the way, with Dr. Dre and Ed Lover. And I got Dr. Dre to cameo in the movie, and you know, the test audience went through the roof when he showed up. So he offered to hire me to train me. And I went to work for him for 5 years until he passed away. And that was my film school. But one thing about producing that drew me in was the fact that I'm in charge. I get to pick the project. I get to oversee the development of the project, and the final say is mine. So I like the buck to stop with me. I like to be the guy that says yes or no and design it. And I like to collaborate, but I mean, if I'm going to put all my effort into something, I want it to be something that I love, and I want it to be something that I want to see. And then when it's successful, then I deserve to get the rewards, not give it over to someone else. And I mean, they actually, when I went to my first set, the producer said, oh, I'm not sending a PA to pick you up from the airport. I can't waste a PA on some fucking writer. So, I mean, those are the kind of things that drove me to producing, because I was like, who the hell are everybody else? It should be a collaborative effort. But at least when I'm producing, I know everyone's voice is going to be heard, and people are going to be respected, and the set's going to be run right, just like I learned when I was at Stella. There's a respect for the stage that's not always on film sets.
So James, I saved you for last because I put you out there and starting the conversation off. So, what is it that is the appeal for you to be a producer and want to strive to that discipline?
Well, I kind of like what Ian was talking about, like just having a say in the project, especially if it, I only really produce something if I wrote it, I want to see it come to life. So I think I talked to you, Joseph, about this, that like, if, I want to make sure I have a say in the actor who's going to play my lead character and stuff. So as a producer, you're able to say yes and no and, have a voice. So whereas if your sole credit is writing, it's kind of like, well, it's in the hands of whoever else is making it.
So in talking about this role of being a producer, it's interesting because the joke that I put out to all you that gets told around, how many producers does it take to change a light bulb? 1 in 11 to take the credit for it. But in a studio system, it is kind of a fungible credit, because people maybe bring somebody into a project, they get a producer's credit. Somebody maybe gets somebody to a screen rewrite on a screenplay, they get a producing credit. But working in independent films, being a producer is a much more labor intensive job, because there's so much more that I find that the people who get the producers credit, not necessarily executive producers, because we know they're the money people, but a producer on an independent film is probably one of the hardest working persons over the whole life of that production than anybody else involved. Do you guys agree, disagree? Heather, let me start with you.
What it comes down to is that if you're in a studio system, you are generally salaried for the full part of the development and shopping the film. As independent producers, you are not salaried, and you're doing what you can, having a couple jobs until these things come off the ground. And you're usually not working on one project, you're working on multiple projects if you're shopping and trying to find the money and trying to find the actors involved. In independent film, and then because I focus on genre, there are a lot of names that are involved in getting these films off the ground. Just like if you're European, you have the co-productions, like Gaspar Noé has like 23 countries that are putting in $5 each to get it done. But all those people are critical. If I have a movie and someone has a relationship with an actor that I can attach to my money to get funded, they're welcome to be a producer on that project, because like they've done their job. They've helped moved it forward. So I feel in independent producing, there's a lot of hands that you need on that project to move it forward. And each of those hands are blessed. Each of those hands are incredibly important. Because it's hard to just to have the full Rolodex, to know all the actors that the sales agents want to greenlight, because that's in a different world. That's more of in the studio world. That's people that have tremendous track records that can reach into that space.
Excellent. Chris?
Yeah, going on what Heather said, she's definitely spot on, and it is a case where having more than one producer, as long as what it comes down to, as long as they're delivering, they deserve a credit. As long as they do what they're supposed to do. The worst thing is when someone's getting a producer credit and they really haven't done anything, and there's reasons why they got it, but it has nothing to do with really, there's always something where it's like, okay, you didn't really bring too much, and that happens. that happens once in a while. It's like, hey, at least take a co-producer or take a lesser, but to take a full-on producer credit, you didn't really deliver on anything. It's kind of a slap in the face to everyone else who's out there busting their ass and making it happen and pulling it all together. And you kind of side-eyed them a little bit, like, okay, we know why you got that. But it is that case where as long as everyone's bringing something to the table, it's like, the potluck. You got to bring something good. You just can't come with a spoon and ready to eat. You got to bring the dishes. You got to bring the food. You got to help set up the table. You got to help, push in the chairs and get it all together. So it is one of those cases where, in every project, independent project, or even a studio film, it's a case by case. It's all going to, be different. Sometimes, when you have there's one producer that you just have one producer, like one straight up producer, because they can bring it all together like that. On the films that I've worked on, we've always had like a few producers on it, but at the end of the day, everyone always brought something, which is really key, and it was really important in order to make those films happen. I think working the closest that I got to working on a studio level was doing the MTV. All the other films were more independent, but the MTV ones, and it was like, you have your executives, and I was more on the executive side because I started off as staff at MTV, and then I transitioned into a producer position. But from there, everyone on that level, it's a different type of situation than on the smaller front. But on films like on Doors, or even like on VHS, there's just a whole different system to how that works. And it really does come down to, what you can bring. And it has to be something substantial. It just can't be like, if you are going to make one call, that better be one hell of a call. If that's what it is, it's about bringing that money, or if it's around, talent or something like that. It has to be something substantial. And, the producer credit is that one credit that is a little bit abused more than other credits. People, when you see a whole list, and, you sort of figure out when who really has done most of the work, and who's really the nuts and bolts and the hands-on, and the ones that are probably like in that gray area of what they're actually bringing to the table or what they did on it. And you can figure that out, like behind the scenes. You'll figure that out. But yeah, exactly what Heather, she was spot on.
Excellent. Eric, so what's your point of view on the idea?
I have a very, I have a maybe kind of a different background, a different opinion on this, because most of my credits are as an executive producer. And that isn't to say that that money wasn't a big component of that. Finding the money is a very hard part of filmmaking. But I've chosen to take those credits where I can, out of respect for the other projects I work on, and for my own projects where I'm involved at development or writing from the first day. I really feel like when you write something, you got nobody on your side, especially if you're doing it on spec or to direct later. It starts with just you. You're the only person. And I think about Jodorowsky's Dune all the time. Like, then you got to go find your spiritual warriors and other people to believe in it. And then, sometimes people make a little bit of a difference between like whether they're a creative producer, whether they help with financing. But at a very small level, if you're making a movie and you're just one person and now you're just two people, you're both looking for money. You're both working on creative. And on my projects, that's been true through the whole development period. Whereas when I come on to someone else's project, unless I'm really there from the first day, I don't feel like taking a producer credit. I had the last film I worked on, I came in at a really odd time where they had finished the movie. The movie had played festivals, and they were kind of just so fed up with the film industry. They were thinking about just releasing the film on YouTube and just drop it, and that's it. They talked to the people who had raised the money for the film, and it had just been a very long journey, and everybody was very tired. And I came onto that film to produce, and I felt on that one like an executive producer credit. The easiest way to outline my job was, I'm going to help you sell your movie. I'm going to find a home for this movie, and I'm going to get it out there. But that film was very tricky because the story was that it purported to be a cursed film from the 70s. And so, on the independent circuit, you talk to a lot of sometimes jaded, real horror enthusiasts, and nobody who's fooled by, this is an allegedly cursed film from the 70s. Like, you're talking to people who watch a lot of movies every year. They're very well read, and they kind of come at it with their arms folded. So I knew I had a big project doing that film because I had to kind of come up with a meta narrative. I had to create a way for filmmakers who are very tired and kind of wanted to just, be done with it. I had to come up with a way for it to sort of tour the independent circuit, and how people would talk about a film that on its surface was like sort of a lie. I mean, we're all adults here. It's sort of a lie. And so there was a lot of crafting of like meta narrative, and that was real creative work. That was not a financial deal, even though my job description was kind of like, please find someone to buy our film. So it was kind of me talking to these smaller boutique places that, traditionally you kind of just show them the film. Maybe they want to put it out, maybe not, but it was sort of a problem film to all of them. And I had to kind of create I had to write a narrative for how we talk about this. What does it really mean on a metaphorical level to invite yourself to a horror film or a genre film, even though the horror isn't real? And really like a lot of deep, pretentious stuff. But it was, at the end of the day, it was really creative work, the kind of work that I would do if I was in development or I was producing a film. But at the end of the day, I just felt like they had already wrote, produced, physically made the film. The film was done when I came on. And so to me, of the available credits, executive producer just seemed, like the right fit, as a respect to the film that had already been made, polished, and truly did not change a single frame after I came on, even though we kind of talk about some of that. So it was very hands-off. It's to respect the original vision if I'm not part of the sort of brain trust that can really change the tone or even the content of a movie from the start.
Okay. James, your insight?
Well, to be honest, I feel like I'm pretty much a novice compared to everyone else. So I'm still learning so much. Still have so much yet to learn about producing and what really goes into it. Besides when, like, I've mostly just done micro budget films. So, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to teamwork and surrounding yourself with people that you trust and that you've worked with before. That always helps, so how they work and their work ethic, especially when it comes to producing, and whether it's finding talent or locations or whatever. Everyone on these really small films that I've worked on, where everyone wears more than one hat, and a lot of times it is producing. Yeah, that's how I feel about it so far.
Mr. Holt.
Well, I have two partners at Old House Productions, which is my production company. One is Michael Alden, who used to run Canon Films and Pathé Post. And he's been nominated for Academy Awards for documentaries, for movies, The Hours. He did Kissing Jessica Stein, which was totally independent, Changing Lanes with Ben Affleck, Just Cause with Ed Harris and Sean Connery. So, I mean, he has this huge track record. And, we hooked up because through a mutual friend. So he handles raising the money, where he's raised money for plays, film, all of that, and he's got his own investors. And a lot of these investors have girlfriends and boyfriends, and they like to take them to the set and show them, hey, I know this star and I know that star. And they get a producing credit for that, to say, I'm producing this movie, and they get to show on the set. I try to keep it to executive producing, when they're handing just money. But that's how it works a lot of the time. My other producing partner, Mike Kuchiak, he's kind of like the guy that works on both ends. I'm more of the creative guy. What they always say to me, I'm creating the weather front that allows people to go raise the money. Like when we were casting Cursed in order to do pre-sales, I mean, what stars are we going to get, on a $3 million movie, and we were like, well, I love Mickey. I've always loved Mickey. We've been friends forever, but who can we cast him with that's going to make him snap again? And I said, we were talking, and I came up with Lindsay Lohan. And I was like, why? They said, why would that be? I said, well, you're getting the bad boy and bad girl of Hollywood, and you're putting them together in a movie that's either going to be genius, they can both really act, and you can either have genius or you're going to have a train wreck that nobody can take their eyes off and we're going to want to see anyway. Either way, we make money. So that was my idea. That's how I produce. I see a vision for the film and how to sell it and how to angle it and how to position it and where to position it and with what director. Well, what was the most successful, I thought, of the remakes, of the horror remakes, and who's not making original films? I mean, the guy made I Spit on Your Grave, which got a sequel, which was probably one of the hardest remakes to do in horror because you're abusing a woman in it. And he took that story about an abused woman who was raped by these guys and turns it into a female empowerment story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that this woman has got bigger cojones than most guys. And you're rooting for her like an action hero by the end of the movie. And that's not an easy feat for a guy to do. You'd think you'd get a woman director to do it. So I put him on this movie. Lindsay, why Lindsay? Well, Lindsay was all excited to do it. Why would she? Because she'd never played a cop before. She's always playing a sexy girl in her underwear. This time she gets to be a badass, you know, and beat people up and fire a gun and, you know, and go after the bad guy, you know. So that's how I produce. I leave the money to my partner and post to my other partner, Mike Kuciak, who also, you know, like for our movie Death Metal, I knew a guy who had his location in Ohio, this old farm that had been empty since the 50s. And he showed me pictures. Oh, it's my grandfather's farm. It's up for sale. And I said, well, when is it being sold? And he said, next year. I said, oh boy, let's write a script and go make a movie there. You know, and he had a studio. So we walked into the old farmhouse, which was all broken down. And then you go down a door into a door which leads to the basement. And then we moved to a studio, come out another door. We're in a beautiful studio, but that's where they're filming. That's where they're filming the making of the album. And everyone who hears the song that they write dies. That's it. And then we made a movie around the set, and it didn't cost anything to shoot it because the director owned a camera and he had a light set. We went in and shot it. You know, episode 50 cost me, you know, how did I get that sold? I got that sold because Ghost Hunters, it was the #1 show on cable at the time. And every time I watched it, I'm like, when is a ghost going to kick their ass? You know, I mean, these ghosts just walk by. I'm like, I want to see a scary ghost. And so did everybody else. So when I pitched that, they said, of course, yes, here's your money. And that's the biggest part of producing, I think, is taking a project or an idea for a project and making it sellable. And luckily, unlike some people who I know how hard it is, I have a partner who's been doing this since he's been 20 years old, selling movies, and has a base of investors. So how we do it is we put in the stars to the movie. We work with a sales agent who tells us how much our stars are worth. We figure in the tax break for wherever we're going to shoot it, or a shooting grant, whatever they have in the area. Subtract that from the budget, make sure the script matches the budget, and then we pre-sell the movie to the amount of money that the stars will bring. And that's our budget for the film. And we make it work. We don't go over. So if the movie bombs, if it turns out horrible, the investors never lose money. If it turns out great, everyone makes a ton of money. But, you know, part of film is, you know, that you got to be careful when you invest in film is someone going to take a big salary, and then there's no way for the movie to make its money back because you get a sales estimate from the sales person, your sales agent, of how much the film could make on the low end to the high end in all the territories. So if your budget is higher than that low end, you better rethink. Because if your investors lose money, they won't invest again. But if they make their money back and they don't make money, they're like, okay, I didn't lose money. Let's try it again. But if they lose money, they're done. So I use those sales estimates and I ask, what combination of actors are going to get me my budget? So you know, how I work as a producer is putting myself in the mind of the investor and in the end user of what what would they want to see? What was fun? What would someone write about? What makes this movie different? Like, why is this movie different from all other movies? Why do I have to see this one? And that's because all you got to do is make sure they get the click. I mean, even when I'm the documentary I'm doing with my Public Enemy, I don't want to tell Public Enemy's story, Sister Soldier and all that. We know that already. I'm telling his story from the beginning when they were born in Roosevelt, Long Island, to the point they became Public Enemy. Why did you change your name from Spectrum to Public Enemy? Why did you invent political rap? What happened? And they tell this incredible story of how Reaganomics destroyed their hometown and they decided to get revenge. Now, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, see it ever, Public Enemy is still, the story they never told is why they are militant, why they are pro-Black and pro-Democrat and all this stuff and all these things, and why they were so against the Republicans, because it destroyed their hometown. We don't know that story, but that's more interesting to me than telling them going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So it's a choice. I'd rather make the A side of the story because that's never been told.
Okay. So, I think Chris and Heather, you brought up the whole thing about the Rolodex and connections and experience and going to the film festival. So there's two thoughts here. One is to become a producer, you got to go to the film school, you got to go that route, you got to meet your people there, decide that that's what you want to do, and then go out into the world and go to the film festivals and just start doing it. The other thing is, well, you need to go to film school a little bit, but the more important thing is getting a job in an agent's office or a production company's office and hearing the conversations and the connections and building a Rolodex so that you can then begin to build that base that you can then go and work as being a producer. So based on everyone's experiences and where they are now in their careers, what would you see or what do you feel is the more valuable path to take? Chris?
Sorry. Just everyone, I'm going to have to jump in a
yeah.
But I think every path in producing is different for everyone, right? With my experience, I took a course at NYU and that's how I started to get into just more of editing and everything like that. But when it came to producing, it's just about having that hustle. I just always knew that I wanted to get into film. It's always something that's been a passion of mine. And I've always, you just got to be out there and put yourself in it. I started off in music videos, worked with SWV, Lil Kim, all those guys, from doing those videos from PA up to AD and just making those connections and even casting and everything like that. A lot of, what I learned was self-taught and not going to school. You don't have to go to school in order to get into the film game. It's a nice, avenue. But, me personally, I always, I like to tell people, look, if you're going to major in something, try to major in something else, because at the end of the day, it's about what you could deliver. And the one thing school won't teach you is just real deal experience. Like they'll teach you the fundamentals and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's all really about having that hustle and that drive. And you got to be able to go out there and you got to have that likability where people are like, yeah, I like this person. They're bringing a certain type of energy. They're not full of shit. And that's the other thing, be a person of your word and make sure that you could deliver on what you say you can deliver. Once I started to get more into more professional, like film producing, as I mentioned, I started on the desk of the president of entertainment over at MTV. And when the opportunity came and, I used to answer his phones and all that. And I went to him directly and I was like, hey, man, I love, answering your phones and doing your calendar and everything like that. But that's not why I came out to LA. I came out because I'm out here trying to make films. I want to produce, I want to direct, I want to write. And I showed him some stuff and the opportunity, and it's all about opportunity and about stepping up for that opportunity. Opportunity came up to start the mandate because they wanted to start shifting away a bit from all the reality shows. The network was taking a hit with ratings, so they started to get into scripted more, and they wanted to do horror. So horror is my jam. That's my whole world, and I know everyone in that. And I was able throughout the years to grow a lot of relationships. And from there, he was like, "Look, if you can figure out something that you want to, one of our IPs, and if you think you have a good approach with it, let's talk about it and we'll make it happen." And that's how the My Super Psycho movies came about, where they had the super sweet 16 reality show with the really bratty rich kids. And their approach was, "Hey, why don't we make this where there's a serial killer killing off all these bratty rich kids?" And that's how that started. But I had to deliver, so I brought in the guys from that did The Signal, Jacob Gentry, who did The Signal. He was one of the directors. That film came out, what was that, Sundance? I forgot, like 2000, maybe 6 or 5 or something like that. But that's where it had 3 directors: David Bruckner, Dan Bush. David Bruckner is doing the new Hellraiser movie. I was a big fan of their work, so I just reached out to his producing partner who did The Signal. I was like, "Look, MTV, we're doing these movies. If you have a good approach on it, why don't you pitch?" So, and that's how I was able to bring them onto the into the equation, and they knocked it out. So, it's really, I think, again, every path is different. You sort of create that path. You have to really envision it, and you have to just go for it. You can't have fear. I think that's the main thing. You just got to believe in what you want to do, make those connections, and make it happen, and be able to deliver. And that's the most important thing: is being a person of your word. Don't bullshit people. Don't waste their time. Just do what you say you're gonna do, and it's all gonna come together.
Cool. And are you gonna bounce now, or?
Yeah, I gotta jump now.
All right. And so, anything new coming out that people should look out for, or?
Well, there's a new witch movie that we're putting together. That's what we're doing with Brad Misko over at Bloody Disgusting. It's called The Sisters of Samhain. It's still kind of early, but hopefully we'll have things rolling soonish. We'll see how that goes. But there is Doors that just came out. It's a cool anthology. If anyone wants to see like trippy sci-fi craziness, that's out. I think you can get it pretty much anywhere. And there's Iced with Lee Daniels. Eventually, he'll get around to making that. So that should be coming out soon at some point.
All right. And if people want to like check out, do you have a website or something, or?
No, I don't have a website, but I have, I guess the only thing really is Facebook.
Okay.
Facebook is really it. On Vimeo, I have a small, like, little director's producing reel and everything like that. That's on there. But I could send it to you later if you want to share it, I guess.
All right. Well, whatever you want to share. Well, thank you for taking the time out, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
And good luck with the other projects.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Miss Heather.
Hey there, Joe. So I think it's fascinating, your question, because, and also to all the kids at home listening, is that I started my life as a graphic designer and like a creative director and a creative lead. So I had an incredible amount of marketing background, which I leveraged on the Ranger during channel strategy, engagement strategy. And then also, because I was a creative lead at a lot of these studios, I knew how to do high level creative management, which means that I knew how to speak to the creative people and collaborate with them, but also pitch to the vertical leads and the MBAs. So I was bilingual in a sense. I could speak the language of an artist, and then I can speak the language of business. And as I mentioned, I moved into film because I was invited into film. I wanted to start my own design studio at the end, so I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit. But so many people told me to be a film producer. Even the late great John Fasano, I did it, and it's very weird to have a woman, because that's always a strike against you, because in the eyes of the industry, they're going to look at your resume more than your potential. And then I come from a working class family. My father was a construction worker and my mother was a teacher's aide. And most of my family came from like factory workers who live in Jersey City. And just being an odd outsider person in general, to have the opportunity to sort of like spread this words and of these messages. That's why I work on set, is that I had all these contacts from doing journalism for Fangoria and at Central, and I hung out with sales agents like for years, like for a decade. And that's the part that I put together in the project. I just leverage, so just hang out. Maybe people just need to hang out, know people, and just have like sort of like a high stress, high management job. And you can sort of wax on, wax off, and become a producer. Just always be cool under pressure. And then as Chris was talking about hustling, you know, I taught pitching in a lot of the studios I work for, and I was a one-time carnival barker, and I think all those things help.
That definitely helps. That's probably the key to pitching, carnival parking.
Yes, at Seaside Heights, outside the Haunted Manor. Come to the Haunted Manor, hot and cold running ghouls. We're dying to meet you. And all the cars, they're giving her dollars off the midway. Who is she? So that's what I use when I try to get these movies made.
She's got me sold already.
Your thoughts, Ian?
You want to specifically? I mean, of going to film school and all that.
Film school, desk job, hanging out on sets.
You know, I'm a little bit country and a little bit rock and roll on this one. You know, I mean, I went to school for acting, like I said, but that it was, you know, method acting, and it was stellar. So it was really getting into what makes a script work, which really made me a great writer. And producing was like the natural step that grew out of that. And I think, you know, being on sets as an extra in movies and then acting in a few films, I think really got me my film school. But my real, I think, you know, until you go out and do it, I mean, you can get like a basic understanding from school. But look, simple story in film school, which is why I'm like down kind of a little bit on film school, is when I went, it was before digital, right at the borderline there. I was like 88, 89 at NYU, and they were still learning on the old digital cutting machines. We were in the class, you would put together a screenplay, and the class would pick which screenplay was going to get made first. So my script won, but I didn't have $10,000 to go out and make it. It's not like today where you can make it digitally. You had to have money to go out and make it. And it went down the list, the next script, till we got to the 9th script that was chosen, because it was Christian Papard's script. George Papard and Suzanne Plachette's son's script. And he got money from mommy and daddy and made it, you know, and we didn't get to make a film. So that was what turned me off to film school at NYU. Now it's different, you know, but for me back then, I got turned off to film school. I thought it was like, well, if only the rich kids can make a film, screw them, I'll do it a different way. Mm-hmm. You know, and I, you know, went out and actually met producers on sets and wormed my way into being an assistant. I'll work for free. I'll do anything. I worked at night as a bartender. I'll work for free all day for you. I'll do anything I have to do. And it really paid off when I did episode 50, which was the first movie I did completely on my own. And of course I made mistakes, but those mistakes were golden. You know, I'm so glad I got a chance to make them. Like a simple mistake is, oh, I'm getting all the money. I found the locations, all this. Director, you handle you're a writer for hire. I got an LA production company co-producing it with me. And I told the director, get your crew, you deal with that and the cameras and all that, and I'll just pay for it. And I'll focus on all the paperwork and all the other stuff that needs to get done. While we're shooting, he decides that he doesn't want to make a horror movie. He doesn't agree with, you know, all of a sudden he doesn't want to do scares. And I said, you got hired to make the script. And he's fighting with me on every scene that he wants to shoot all the acting first. I said, nobody cares about the acting first. That's second. What we're supposed to do is scare people. Horror movies are a theme park roller coaster ride. We're scaring people. We need just set up the characters and that's it. Make people like them and then scare the hell out of them when you kill them. He wanted to make this, you know, horror mystery, you know, suspense thriller, and and we fought all the way. And some of the scares couldn't be used. We get to Cannes. We screen for the studios at Cannes, and they write down 1, 2, 3, 4 with a little line through it, how many times the audience jumps. I'm up against the devil inside. One of us is getting paid $2 million and going out in 1,500 screens. They had 6 more scares than us. Devil Inside got released. We got released in England in the theaters, opposite that George Clooney movie, I forget, the Ides of March. We did really well. We got released in the Middle East, but we didn't get a theatrical release in the US. And we didn't because although I had 8 more scares, we couldn't use them or we didn't shoot them because I was fighting with the director. And why I didn't fire him was because it was his crew. If I fired him, he would have walked off with the crew too. So, I mean, that is a very valuable lesson that you cannot learn in film school. You're only going to learn that in real life situations. And that changes everything you do for the rest of your producing career. You will never again allow a director to hire his own crew. And that makes you a better producer. So you can only do that stuff on set in a real situation. So I think you learn by doing.
Eric, what are your thoughts on the two
Well, I didn't
paths?
go to film school, so my opinion is going to be a little biased here, but I guess I'd address this a little bit differently. I mean, this is like so many problems you deal with even as a producer. You know, you come up against a lot of unknowns when you make a movie. And when you work in the independent space and really in like a lot of micro budget space and do it yourself kind of stuff, you can never prepare for everything. You're gonna face new problems that you don't know how to troubleshoot. And so I start by looking at every problem in 1 of 3 ways. And I think this is the same for film school. When you need something on a movie, when something comes up, you have some kind of problem, you can find a way to not have this problem. You can have or develop the skills yourself to solve the problem, or you can connect to somebody else who has those things. So if I want to make a movie and I need the money, I either need to find a way to make that movie without getting the money, or if that's not the right path, I need to learn to make that money myself personally. Or if I don't think that's something I have the time to learn how to do, or I could never do it, never see myself doing it, I need to connect to somebody else who wants to be on this movie, who can make the money. This is true for every discipline, every problem. I can't think of a problem under the sun that, that this isn't the case for. So there's this great debate, and I have it with people all the time over, because I'm very curious what they think. Should you go to film school? What do you get out of film school? For me, the grass is always greener. I taught myself. I'm an autodidact, and I didn't go to film school. So I always ask people, well, what did you learn in film school? Tell me about it. Like, can I divine some information from you? Did I miss out? Am I like film school FOMO? So, one of the big things about film school is it connects you to people and you make films. And one of the big cons about film school is you lose a bunch of money going to film school, and maybe it doesn't help you anyways. I know a lot of people who graduate from film school, they don't make any movies. They talk about making a lot of movies, but they're sad and they don't do it. And I also know a lot of people who figured out how to do all of these things on their own, and they did it quicker, and they got to make the movies they wanted from day one. And they have huge gaps in their knowledge that make their films like kind of exciting and more interesting because they don't know the right way to do it, because they figured it out on the job. So for me, yeah, I figured a lot of things out on the job. But if you're sitting at home and you're going, okay, should I go to film school? Well, on one hand, it would connect me to a lot of people. Do you need a connection to a lot of people by paying somebody to give you that over the course of 3 or 4 years? Or could you come up with an alternate plan to be connected to a lot of people? Because if I use my sort of, producer troubleshooting methodology, film is one of the very few disciplines where you can't really do it without being connected to anybody. I mean, you could act in your own film that you cut yourself and you write yourself and you do the color yourself and you do the whole thing, but you can't really distribute it yourself. And at that point, like, why don't you just paint, man? So you kind of need to be connected to other people. All right, so throw the first one out. You can't just like tell yourself you don't need that to fix that problem. So now I want to make films. I got to be connected to other people. Should I go to film school? Well, that would be connecting yourself to other people. I can get some money. I can pay for this somehow. I can spend 3 years, and I'm going to work my way through the web of film school connections. And you will meet people there. Hopefully you go to a good film school. And if you get lucky, you know, they'll tell you in film school that most of the people don't make films. 95% or whatever, people go to film school and never make films. But a couple of people will, and they'll make really damn good films, and you'll go see them and you'll be super jealous. I know a couple of these people. So that's one way to do it. Now, I cheated, right? So I like really intellectual horror films. I like the kind of films Ian doesn't want me to make. You know, so I just like, I focus too much on the characters and I think too much about the metaphor. And that's why I get involved in all these films that are a little tricky to sell later. But you know, so I like this stuff. And there are a couple of people who do this really successfully. A24 movies, Hereditary kind of does this. There's a very like narrow window where you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. You'd be really fucking scary and you also be really layered and really deep. And it's hard and expensive to do this. But my point is, those guys went to film school and I think they're pretty interesting people. And I would have liked to been in their class. And I couldn't do that, but I could meet them through other means. And I could meet people from their class. And I know from what I just told you that 95% of people in film school go on to do nothing. So they're very easy to take meetings with, you know, I'm doing nothing, they're doing nothing, we want to meet. And, you know, everybody's got war stories and misery loves company. So we can kind of talk about it and maybe who did they know and would they introduce me, and maybe there's a way for all of us to work on this together. There's a lot of mutually beneficial scenarios that you can find between meeting people. That's another thing about producing, is that you're always looking for mutually beneficial scenarios. How many stories have we heard about that? Those are the Lindsay Lohan scenarios. Like, why would Lindsay Lohan want to work on your movie to be a cop, right? So, you know, you're always looking for these things. So I might go, well, I missed a few things by going to film school. Let me identify what those are. I saved a lot by going to film school. You know, I worked for a huge company on these big financial projects, and I got a lot of boons, but I missed working my way through the web. And I'm a socially shy creature who's always like looking for connection with other people. So, you know, you devise a strategy like, where are the film school people hanging out? Let's see what movies they made. Let's look at the top film schools who graduated from their classes. Let's watch their shorts, write their directors some letters. I found another path to do that because that, in my case, was a skill I could kind of train myself on. If that sounds like way too much fucking work and you're just thinking to yourself like, wow, I'd rather just like work a job for a little while, save money and go to film school, you know, that's a path too. But then you have to go do all the stuff that you miss out on while you're doing that for 3 years and not learning on the job.
Then Black Mansion picks up your film because we like horror films, who is connected to everyone in the industry, so you didn't have to do that anyway.
Yeah, right. Find your Heather Buckleys. That's the real.
It's true. And how A24 started, it's like be one of the film finance groups at the Guggenheim Partners. That's probably a better place to go if you want to be a film producer. Come from money, be very connected to money.
Oh, doesn't need to do that. I mean, you know, I went to school with Brett Ratner, who now is infamous in a real, probably exile community. But what he did do that was really smart was I was promoting, if you remember the Oscar Mayer kid from the 70s, he had a club in Manhattan, I can't think of his name, and he wanted to do a movie, like a fake documentary like Spinal Tap about how famous this kid is. It did the Oscar Mayer commercials with the red hair, Mason somebody. So I was promoting his club with my fraternity. He script won in his class, but he didn't have the money to make it, just like I didn't. So amazingly, he wrote a letter to Steven Spielberg and told him his situation. Spielberg sent him a check for 10 grand and he made the movie. And then when he got graduated, Spielberg wanted to meet him, got him an agent, and before he knew it, he was working at Def Jam doing videos for Russell Simmons. But he had the nerve to write to Spielberg and said, I need $10,000. Sometimes it's just, like you said, Eric, you know, having the guts to make the phone call.
The nerve helps a lot. Yeah. You also need, the thing I learned in my first movie, sorry, I know we're dragging this question out, but I do think this is really important. You need this thing in the film industry, which is also almost like it's like a psychopathic lack of self-awareness, you know? It's beyond like like a lack of humility or something, but basically you're going to get told no 100 times a day, every day for like the rest of your life. And you need to be like, cool, I'm really glad that thing I was invested in is never going to get made. I'm just going to ask somebody else to do it.
You have to be
You
a
have to keep
psychopathic narcissist.
doing that.
You must
Yeah.
be a psychopathic narcissist. That no
Yeah.
matter what anyone says to you, how much you suck, how much your script sucks, how
Yeah.
stupid you are, how crazy you are, you still need to walk out of that room, boy. I don't care. I'm the best.
Yeah,
I'm more like I'll show them, so I'm not very good with the.
Well, yes, yeah,
Oh,
I'll get my revenge.
Or the great comeback. He's a bean counter, right? Oh, who knows? Right? He probably went to Yale and Harvard for business school, and they yanked him out and put him in some Hollywood job. He doesn't know anything about creativity.
Yeah.
You need
So,
that kind of fantasy in your head.
so James, let me ask you this question then. You know, you've just finished Bad Witch, which you got distribution on, and you've done some other films prior to that. And you're so immersed in many parts of your films. Do you agree that as a producer, basically you have to turn around and sell something, which is the hardest job because you're selling something that nobody knows anything about yet, nobody believes in yet, and you have to make that case for your film?
Well, I mean, are you saying like, are you talking about in terms of financing the film?
Well, a little bit of everything from the
Okay.
financing to the distribution. I mean, it's almost like you've got to be the film's head cheerleader all the way through from beginning to end.
Yeah. Well, I went kind of a crazy route to get Bad Witch made, but I mean, people say you shouldn't do this, but I kind of funded it myself. Like, you know, you work, if you want to get a movie made, you're gonna get it made, even if you have to work like 80 hours a week, you know, at 3 different jobs, you know. And then, you know, you make connections with people who did go to film school and who do know the terminology, because, you know, a lot of that stuff, it's beyond me still, the techniques and all those things that you would learn in film school. And then, you know, you guys kind of just work together, and how we got it distributed was Gravitas wanted it, but we went with this other company, but it was held up for almost a year, and we had to really fight tooth and nail with them to get it back. It was really a crazy bad experience. We were like at war with each other with this other company. Luckily, they released it, and we went back to Gravitas, and they took us back and released the movie. But yeah, it will put you through the ringer from start to finish. Even after the movie's done, there's so many things you have to go through. But I mean, that's what I signed up for. So, you know, it is what it is.
I guess for Heather and for Eric, just hearing you guys talk, the way and where you get involved with films in different stages, you guys, when you get involved with it, I know there's financial concerns because we all need to make money, but it also sounds like it's also a bit of passion that you find projects that you feel passionate about and you go that route. Heather?
Well, I was going to say Eric and I should answer this together. So it's true. Being a development producer where you're doing IP, don't make any money. So I have my day job. So Lober. I work for seven films. I do all their DVD extras. It's like 7 producers in the world do this job. And then sometimes I pick up like actual like adult film jobs where I do like, you know, UPM, PM. You know, you're not a creative producer. You're nuts and bolts on the set. And I also do extra work because every show in New York City needs a punk rocker. Cut to on Facebook. See Eric 13 on Facebook. Love Eric 13's name, and they have a check mark next to their name. So I start just texting out of the blue, Eric about stuff, and we had a good vibe, and they told me about Cherish, this project they're working on. And I saw what they were doing. I saw the people involved, and it's like, oh, the people involved. It's like, because this is like a psychodrama kink movie. I know exactly what you're making. We were like on the same vibe. And then like I helped create the lookbook and just came on as a producer that way. And why Eric 13? Eric 13 is rad. I think they're brilliant. I love that they're working like edgelord sort of high drama, like where the laws run tears, they got Gaspar Noé. I wanted so hard to make a movie like that in America, and that's one reason I used to talk to the sales agents at Fantasia Market, at the different markets, because like, how do we bring that kind of like hard edge drama filmmaking to America? So Cherished was this project, and also would be an opportunity to work with Tyler McIntyre, who is a producer on this project, he directed Tragedy Girls. So there was like lots of reasons. It's like, Eric's awesome. I get along. Therefore, seems like a voice that should be just, you know, out of the grace of being a good person, should be platformed in the film industry. Love the work that they're doing and this aesthetic. I felt that there's a place that you could like position and market it to put it out into the world, because it had such a distinct integrated style, and the music would be great. We could do vinyls of that. Eric themselves has such a great thing to say. And then I would get to work with Tyler, and it was sort of a lower budget than the other projects that I'm working with Black Mansion. So there's like lots of reasons why I'll pick up a project, but I have to honestly tell you, the first reason is like, can you work with this person? Because I am not a producer that goes in there and takes someone's script and I have to put myself in that, because I'm an artist, I'm a writer, I could do my own work. It's like, I want to see their singular vision untouched on the page. And I like things that are certainly, I'm going to call it like underwritten, because they're leaning on the style, they're leaning on the mood, on the mood, and those things are very interesting to me. This sort of like poetic, almost silent film telling technique. So it needs to be like a type of film talking about something that I feel that I could literally help. Like if you're doing an art house kink film, I am here to help you. I would know where to put it. I know what people to talk to in film fest about it, but I would not be able to do that with a different sort of film. If I was making Steel Magnolias, I would not be able to do the job, because I don't have that Rolodex, I don't have that passion, and I don't have those connections to help bring it to life. But with the Ranger, it's like, here's your punk rock soundtrack with all the punk rockers. Here, I could throw a party for you. I could find the locations. I know the marketing strategy for it. So if I know that right off the bat, if I know if there's a place in the marketplace and the person's rad and they're creating a film that I would love to see, it's all the reasons why I picked it up. To you, Eric.
Thank you. It's like somebody like blowing me up here.
Yes.
Thanks, I appreciate that, Heather.
You deserve it.
Well, look, like I was, one of the things that was really hammered into us at Apple, and if you know, like part of the mythology of that company, is they don't really like to do anything unless they can just knock it out of the park. If they can't totally crush it, or they don't at least think they can, they don't think they have a unique vision for something, they just will not touch it. And I think that's just become such a part of when I come onto projects. Like I won't take a partnership if I don't think I have a unique value add to it. If I can't really do something and do something great, like truly great, because my whole secret is I just reach for 10 out of 10 every time, and I land at like 7.5 out of 10, and that's just gotta be good enough. But you gotta like reach for the 10 to get there. And so for me, you know, I'm a very shy person, so it's hard for me to, like, I want to make connections and I want to come onto projects, but I hate making the first move because I don't want to push myself onto a project. And so a lot of times I'm waiting for people to come to me, and most of the times those people are a little lost in the dark. They don't exactly know the right next step, and unfortunately, I'm not the right next step for them. So I'm always looking for projects where it's like, if you and I come together and do something, we're gonna kill it. It's gonna be truly great. And then I can rest on the results of that once it's done. And what that's allowed me to do is, you know, I have a little less to show for it over the years, but you know, I have a few projects, and I'm happy with my part in all of those projects. And I just feel like that is it's a really good path forward. to speak to the other thing that Heather was saying is you can really spend your time in development hell if you want to take a big swing, because you're usually writing or you're getting involved with a project people don't believe in, or it's a very small seed when you start and you have to make a living somehow. And I really, really firmly believe, others will disagree with me, but I really believe like if you want to make a go at this job in this life, you got to go all in. And, you know, it's risky and you might burn out and it's really tough to make it. But I was not able to work a normal job at a big company, even in a creative capacity, and get the films made. And I thought I could, and I did it for almost a decade, thinking, well, I'll make money here and this will be my stable thing and I'll make my films on the weekends. And I just could not get that done. And I don't see a lot of people who have success that way. But if you can get a job in the film industry, even if you're not terribly enthusiastic about it, or if you're just starting out, or even if it's grunt work, and sometimes you even return to that between projects, as long as it's in the same industry, you still have the same potential to meet people, to make connections. And along the way, like I was talking about before, you find your spiritual warriors. Maybe you work on some, you know, on a film I just worked on. A big part of my job was doing the creative design on the poster and the marketing materials, because that was the point at which I came on that film. And through that job, I found a person who was really great at iterating on creative materials that spoke to me personally. And I'm like, whoop, gonna cannibalize that. I will put that person in the Rolodex. I will call them every time I got a thing. I also had to spend a lot of time sitting down with that guy and figuring out like what made him tick so we could speak the same language. And I know what he's passionate about that he would just kill to work on for free. I do this with a lot of makeup artists. You know, I'm always working on stuff with them. And, you know, I'll ask them, hey, so what kind of special makeup effect have you never gotten to do that you would really just love to do? Oh, this, or this thing. And I file that away. And I know next time I have a music video that doesn't have a budget, but we want to do something big, that, oh, you know what, if I could get just enough money to pay for the materials, I can call up that special effects artist and go, hey, if you can fly to New York, you can crash at my place. We can't pay you for it, but we can't pay me or anybody else for it anyways. We all want to do this for some reason. And they will give you free reign to run on this special effect you've been dying to do for X, Y, or Z purpose. And sometimes that's been enough to put projects together. Ideally, you'd want to do this for more and more money so, you know, you guys can eat, right? Like that's a hard part of it. But you work these jobs, and as long as they're in the industry and you have potential to meet future collaborators, you're building towards making a lot of those contacts maybe you didn't make in film school. And I definitely consider that too. So, you know, part of it is like when somebody comes and they say, I have a project, I think about all of these things. I think about, can I make a unique contribution to this? Am I going to be able to feed some of these other projects out of this project? And, you know, are we going to be able to make something sustainable going forward? Those are like key questions in taking on any job. And I think that's going to be different for different disciplines and even different kind of producers.
Cool. Ian, your thoughts?
Well, no one could really do how I did it, I think, because it was so much luck involved. And sometimes it happens that way. But I was working at Buckley for an internship, Don Buckley and Associates, for an internship at NYU. The agent I was working for got sick, went home for 3 weeks, and then died of AIDS. And it was devastating to everyone. It was horrible. And they asked me to stay on because I was so intricate in all the projects he was working on. And I felt the responsibility. And I stayed. And for that kindness that I did to Buckwald, they broke one of their rules and represented me for acting and for my scripts. While I was at Brittany Dorms, down the block lived Stephen Bauer from Scarface, who was married at the time to what's her name, the lead in Brian De Palma's Body Double, and she did Working. Melanie Griffith, thank you. So I used to say, hey, Manolo, every morning. He used to go, hey. So one day we stopped to talk, and he told me that Brian De Palma has lunch at the Italian restaurant every Wednesday down the block when he's in New York. So every Wednesday I'd go by and look for Brian De Palma. And I pitched him a script. He goes, look, I'm not interested in that, but I know I really want a pretty woman. Do you have a pretty woman? And he invited me to sit down and have lunch with him. And we talked, and he said, you know, that script that you told me about, I think Buddy Bregman would like it, who's the son of the guy who did Scarface. So the agency called up Buddy Bregman, and I got my first script option. It never got made, but I got an option. And from there, I started writing. And I realized I could write. And one of the scripts I wrote was the sequel to Bram Stoker's Dracula, the novel, not the movie, not the Coppola movie. But it got picked up first by Joe Dante and then by Jan de Bont. And when it didn't get made, I turned it into a novel and sold it for the biggest first-time novelist money ever. And it became an international bestseller, and I live off that and produce my movies. So it's not fair I mean, that's such a crazy story, how I met Stokers and all this stuff and how that came together. I got very, very lucky. And I'm the first one to admit it. And I wouldn't know how you guys do it. I have such respect for people like you who find a way to survive and still make your films and struggle with it. You know, that's to me is amazing. I mean, I got lucky. But how you guys do it and still make great films, my hat's off to you. All I would say is how I got my start was finding a novel from 1973 that I was able to track down the authors and get the rights to. And then I had something branded that I could say was a hit. It wasn't in my head. It wasn't like, oh, I wrote the greatest screenplay ever myself. It was when I saw the making of Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Coppola movie, they held up a book called In Search of Dracula. And that's how I got into Dracula. I turned that book into a screenplay, but I took every dime I had, flew to Boston, met with the authors, gave them $1 for the rights, promised to get them a rights deal sale and half my screenplay sale. And they gave me the rights to the book. I wrote a screenplay, and all of a sudden agents wanted me because I had a branded product that was proven a hit at one point. It was a bestseller. So it never got made, but that got me next to the Stoker family when I was invited to Transylvania and Romania with the professors who wrote the book. And I met Stoker's family, Abbott Costello's family, Bela Lugosi's family, you know, and from there, I was able to talk the Stokers into coming back to Dracula, and we wrote a screenplay and eventually became the novel. So, I mean, it's how things work. You got to get lucky too sometimes in this industry. Sometimes it's just pure crazy luck.
So, James,
Yes.
with everything that you've been through up until this point in your career, if you could go back and give any one piece of advice that you've find is like your touchstone now when it comes to producing and making movies, what would that be? And B, what are your thoughts and feelings about belonging to organizations like the Producers Guild?
Well, I would have to say just go with your gut. Just listen to your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, go with it. Even if you're like saying, "Oh, I'm just being paranoid." No, go with it because you'll thank yourself later. So whether that comes to casting or your own script or whatever, even if you have to look at yourself and, you know, figure out something that you need to fix, but just go with your gut. I mean, that's just with anything in life. And then B, well, like I said, I'm such a newbie that I can't even imagine myself in such a, you know, high up there organization. So I don't know if I can really give a good, well thought out answer, to be completely honest.
All right.
Just yet.
Do you have any like websites, magazines, anything that if you're looking for advice or information that you go to when it comes to producing?
Uh, I just I just learn from experience. From I think I always say I just fuck up less each time, and like I learn from my mistakes, and then just take what I learn and try to make each project better. I think that's the goal, is to just keep getting better and
Cool.
reach your potential.
Miss Buckley,
Yeah.
so what would you tell your younger self? What's your touchstone that you live by these days? And what are your thoughts on the professional organizations?
Well, I mean, it's really hard because my younger self never envisioned myself working in film.
Okay.
I literally decided to work in film when everyone said you should be a film producer, and I go like, let me try this out. Since like 15 people just told me to be a film producer, let me figure this out. I mean, on my older productions, I guess if you're doing a horror movie and it looks like there's going to be sequels, make sure that you're working with a lawyer that puts that language in early. Always, if you're working on an IP from the bottom up, make sure that writing that you have it all. I think that's very important. And then when you're doing it's probably not best to be just thrown into UPM work, and you probably need a buddy that knows a lot of union rules to get that done. Don't think that you could run an entire union set, even if your friend says that you can.
Okay.
You really gotta know about second meal. You really gotta know about those regulations. It's not instinctual. It's written down somewhere. So yeah, buddy system when learning huge and impossible tasks. Buddy system.
Okay. Mr. Holt.
I would have told myself, when you go in for your meetings, when your agent sends you in for these meetings and you go to your pitch projects, arrive early and hang out in the bathroom more. And I mean, how funny that is, it sounds, but I hanging out at Fox Searchlight in the bathroom, I met Jan de Bon, and that's how I got my script to him. I was hanging out at a film show, a film conference like this at NYU, and I met someone, Joe Fennell, who was Mike Fennell, who was Joe Dante's producer. So I guess I should have hung out in the bathroom more. I don't know. Other than that, to me, it's a crap game. It really is this life. Yes, you can, in some cases, control your destiny, but most cases, it's the luck of the draw. And I think the thing that I would tell myself most is put yourself in as many situations as you can to meet people, to don't be afraid to knock on doors, to make phone calls, to be pushy, to call back. Sometimes, people are very busy in this industry and they work on a few things, and you get them on the right day when they're free, it's great. And then they disappear for a while. The line is always hurry up and wait. So I would say be persistent. Don't give up, and be persistent.
Cool. Any thoughts on the guild? Yes or no?
The PGA.
Yeah. Or belonging to a professional organization, or
What is the thing? I would never join something that would have me as a member.
I was just wouldn't want to be a part of any club that would have me.
Yes.
Well, the good thing is my partner is, and I don't have to be.
Oh, okay.
Covered on both sides.
I mean, it is really exciting to have the PGA letters after your name. So one day in the future, but only have the PGA names.
Okay. And Eric, your thoughts? What would you tell your younger self?
Be more distrustful of sales agents and distributors. I think. Beware of magic bookkeeping. Don't be afraid to burn it all down. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is, I also direct. So my focus is always trying to keep both of those skills sharp. And I think a lot of what's benefited me in my life, at some point, I moved to Los Angeles and I quit the industry and I left Silicon Valley, the industry I was in. And I really feel like my life opened up at that point. Now, I always look back and go like, oh my God, I could have started sooner. I could have been younger, whatever. I regret not coming to film at a very, very young age and just sinking my teeth in and never letting go. But I was similar to Heather. I had no idea I would wind up making film. And when I was young enough to have that ambition, it just seemed so impossible to me. So, that was kind of the path that I went down. And in a lot of respects, you don't get to choose. You're going to have life-altering events as time goes on. And, for a lot of people, it's moving to LA. I don't feel like you have to move to LA to make movies. I feel very strongly that you don't. And that there's a lot of advantages to being the big fish in the small pond. But that's my own, life experience. People have different experiences around that. But moving to LA did teach me one thing, which is that you could become fully immersed in the art life and in the sort of advantages of waking up, thinking about producing, thinking about writing and directing, and thinking about how films are made. And you can gain that very powerful lens, and then you can apply that to every facet of your existence. And it's always helpful generating ideas and connecting pieces when you can start getting in that mode, as I was talking about earlier, trying, even if you're a PA on a set, even if it's a low paying job, or even if you're working on things that you're not passionate about, just by virtue of being in the industry, you're not only meeting people who might connect with you in some regard, might want to work on a future project, or you guys might be able to help each other out, but you are also keeping your mind soft in that very open, receptive, artistic manner. You can think about, you're making artistic calls all day long on everything, even as a PA. You're making those kind of calls, you're watching people do scenes, you're picking things up from people. And so much of it is really the Wild West. I mean, independent filmmaking is so very much the Wild West. So many things we've talked about tonight are really, well, it kind of goes like this, but it could go any way. Well, this is sort of my story, but like there's a million different ways to do this. And the rules are changing, every single day, and the models and how films are even made. And so all of that goes to say that if you are in and around that, living that life, that you're going to be more adept to connect those pieces, which is ultimately, I think, the number one skill of a producer. Whether you're talking about money or cast, or you're just going to come on and maybe you have an idea about a property and what might hit the zeitgeist, and so you're going to option this script and now it's yours, and you got to find a director. Even if that's the level you come at it from, you're still connecting pieces. And you're going to do that all the way through development. You're going to do it on set when there's a fire to put out. You're going to do it when nobody wants to sell the movie and you have to, come up with some crazy new way to do it. You're going to be connecting pieces. And if you can reach back through years and years of experience, even as a PA, even working as an assistant in an office, but working within the film industry or in a creative industry in some capacity, you will be able to leverage all of that experience, which, as an independent, I think is just absolutely critical. So I guess my advice to my younger self is like, get involved in film more, develop the psychopathic resistance to hearing no earlier, and really sink your teeth in on that.
Excellent. So we're running out of time. So what I'd like to give you guys an opportunity to do is, if you want to plug any projects, or as producers, you have channels with which to communicate to people, maybe some of the participants who've been here for the panel, to get in touch with you if they have any other questions, or you want to communicate with the unwashed masses waiting to be produced, please feel free to do that as well. So Heather, what's on your plate you can talk about, and how do people seek you out and become stalkers and
Yeah, so how do you stalk Heather Buckley? One, make sure you go on Facebook and love Black Mansion. I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. My Facebook URL is Joe Spinell Lives. And then I have a
Wait,
slate.
did you say Joe Spinell?
Joe Spinell Lives. Yes, he's one of my favorite actors. And so that's
I love Joe.
literally-
Joe,
Yes,
Joe,
that's my Facebook URL.
That's so cool.
maniac.
Yes. So I adore him. And my phone is called Joe Spinell. The actor who is in the movie The Ranger needed to borrow my Wi-Fi. And he looks at me, he's like, is your phone named Joe Spinell? And I said, it is. So the another character actor also loved that. So yeah, so I run Black Mansion Films. I have a lot of co-conspirators out in the world to keep it going and keep it off the ground. I have an awesome agent, Brian Goldberg from WFA, and he represents my slate of 11 films in one series that are various stages of packaging, always looking for finance, always looking for love. And myself, there's a lot of podcasts out in the world. Sometimes I talk about producing, sometimes I talk about my love of Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer and Texas Oscar 3. Because in the end, I love to make these movies, but like I'm a huge fan. Like I was like a little horror kid growing up with my Fangorias and like Fantaco slipcases in the 90s. And I can also be found at like local punk rock shows near you.
thank you. James, what's up with you and do you want people to find you? And
I don't know. Yeah, right now I'm working on a new story, doing a lot of writing organization for the script, and that's what I'm doing creatively right now. Just working on this new project, this idea I've got going, and there's not. I don't know. I'm not big on social media. I mean, I have Facebook and all that, but I don't use it that all. I haven't been on in like 5 days, so that shows you how much I'm into it. But yeah, you can email me, or I don't know.
where if they come across you, they can try to get in touch with you.
If people want to find me, they'll find me.
Okay.
Like with anyone, if you want to find someone, you'll find them.
Well, for all of you, if I was able to find you on social media or a website, it is on our Winter Film Awards website, whatever links for you I could find. So if you go to winterfilmawards.com, you click on the education link tab, you'll see at the top like everybody's nice little picture, and if you click on their name, it'll bring up their page, and whatever I have for you is there. So you might want to take a look if you want me to just.
You've all been outed by Stephanie. Oh no.
You've all been outed. Well, if a website, or if I found a website or Facebook, I didn't call out the FBI to really sleuth you down, but if there was something obvious, I put that on there.
And Eric, what's on your plate? And
I mean, actually, to Ian's earlier point, like I am one of those people who is very guided by whim, and lots of different things excite me at different times. And if you catch me on the right day, I might be really, really interested in an idea if it taps into some palette of other ideas. So I'll say, and this is just on my own behalf, I won't speak for anybody else. Don't send me scripts. Don't send me unsolicited pitch ideas. I can't help you with that. I'm the wrong. I know it says executive producer next to my name, but I don't know what to do with this, and I'm very sorry. I'm not the right person, and I don't really know who to send that to. But what I will say is, especially if you're in New York or can get to New York and you want to make some stuff, I am in this business because I love creating things. And I'm always, always, always looking for new things to dip in and out of, especially music videos, artists. Music really speaks to me. So musicians looking for videos and want to talk about different ideas. And even, even if you're not sure how to represent your song visually, or what you could possibly make on your budget, or how to put it together, like those things I really like diving deep on. If you want to really figure out the right whims and do some stalking, I'll give you a weird thing. I have this sort of like pirate radio show I do. It's called Double Feature. It's doublefeature.fm. And for like 14, 15 years, I get on that with a friend of mine, and we talk about some really deep film stuff, some really like esoteric sort of weird stuff. And so it's usually a good way to pick up on the vibe of bizarre things that are, you know, little ideas I'm chasing down, or other little tidbits about producing, because I air plenty of grievances on that too. It's not a how-to podcast. It's not a filmmaking podcast, but it's about film by somebody who works full-time in the industry. And so I'm sure that stuff trickles out. And, you know, all of the best ways to contact me, you'll find on that show pretty quickly. If you listen to it, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. So yeah, I guess the only thing I would say then is doublefeature.fm. That would be the one.
Cool. And Mr. Holt.
Well, the easiest way to find me is on Facebook. My Ian Holt. You'll see all my movies there and everything, and all my thoughts. I'm not on too much, but if you instant message me or give me a friend request, I'd be happy to talk to you. And any man who wears a Cannibal Holocaust shirt,
Someone caught it.
I freaking love.
Bicycle shot, man, right there.
Do you see where I'm sitting?
Yes, of course.
So
I saw that on 35 millimeter in New York this week at the Museum of the Moving Image.
Wow. Well, look at the 227, the movie. We have to talk about that. I'm sure you've got a lot of thoughts on that one.
I do have thoughts.
Wild documentary.
But you guys interest me. So definitely, you should give me a call. I'd love to know what you're doing too for this.
This is not devolving into the second horror panel.
We are both in New York. We're all in New York. Heather, you too. I think, you know, the New York people.
Filmmakers, come to New York.
That's right. Yes, I mean, the only thing that happens out in LA is the studio stuff. And when we go independent into LA, what happens is development hell.
Yep.
Right? They only make the stuff that they think is branded. So the place to make the cool shit that gets branded eventually for the sequels and everything is here in New York. That's my thought. You know, only in the cool independent stuff. So you can find me at Ian Holt, and Joe has all my info. So
if you don't want to stalk him, you can stalk me. And with that, Ian, I want to thank you. Eric, I want to thank you. Heather, I want to thank you. James, thank you. And Chris, who left us earlier. Thank you, Chris. And it's been a pleasure. I hope for those listening, it's been informative and you come away with something. So thank you very much. And I hope to be in a screening room watching something you're involved with soon.
Yay. Now just the festival is hosting just a casual outside film networking party this Saturday at Culture Lab, Long Island City. So if you are in the city around 6 o'clock on Saturday and you want to go hang out with film people and just, you know, have a beer, there's taco truck, hang out and relax. That would be a fun thing to go do. Otherwise, I know all y'all are into horror. So September 26th is our horror day at the festival, and you should come. It would be awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. And we will be putting this up online over the next couple days. So people can recheck back. But thank you so much for joining. Thank you, our panelists, and John, have a good night.
All righty. Take care, everybody. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Good night. Good night. Good night.
Good night.